Have you noticed? You lower your voice in an empty house. You feel it before you notice you're doing it. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a question flickers. Who am I being quiet for? There's no one there. You know that. But some older part of you isn't so sure. And that part of you is not new. It is not a personality quirk or a modern superstition picked up from a movie. It is tens of thousands of years old, and it is one of the strangest habits your species ever developed. Long before writing, before cities, before agriculture, humans were already convinced that the dead were still watching. This belief did not arrive quietly. Archaeologists have found it carved into the earliest evidence of human ritual behavior. At Shanidar Cave in what is now northern Iraq, Neanderthal remains were discovered surrounded by pollen clusters, hinting that flowers may have been placed with the dead as far back as 60,000 years ago. Some researchers still debate whether the pollen came from burrowing rodents rather than mourners. But the debate itself tells you something. Even scientists cannot rule out that a Neanderthal, tens of thousands of years before Stonehenge, might have knelt beside a body and left something behind on purpose. Why would a species do that? Flowers do not feed the dead. Grave goods do not protect a corpse. And yet, across nearly every early human culture archaeologists have ever studied, the dead were buried with tools, jewelry, food, sometimes even companions. Why would people who fought daily for survival waste resources on someone who could no longer use them? The answer isn't really about the dead. It's about the living and how a human brain is built. Psychologist Jesse Bering, who spent years studying the cognitive science of belief, argued that humans are natural-born dualists. Your brain automatically separates a person from their body. Watch a young child react to a puppet show, and you'll see it happen instantly. The child understands the puppet is cloth and stuffing, but they still react as though the puppet has intentions, feelings, a will of its own. Bering's research suggested this isn't something children are taught. It's something a normal developing brain does on its own, almost immediately without effort. Now apply that same wiring to death. A person you have known your entire life, someone whose voice, expressions, and personality are burned into your memory, suddenly stops moving. Their body is right there. But everything that made them, the mind behind the eyes, simply vanishes. For most of human history, there was no biology to explain that gap, no germ theory, no understanding of the brain shutting down, just a body and an absence. Your mind hates unexplained absences. It fills them in. And that is exactly what the evidence suggests early humans did. If someone's presence didn't feel gone, if their voice still echoed in memory, if dreams brought their face back at night, then maybe they weren't gone. Maybe they had simply changed form. Cognitive scientist Pascal Boyer, who studies the origins of religious thought, has pointed out that most early belief systems didn't invent the idea of spirits from nothing. They extended a habit the brain already had, tracking other minds even when there was no clear evidence a mind was present. Think about how often you do this yourself. You talk to your car when it won't start. You apologize to a table after stubbing your toe on it. You feel a flicker of guilt throwing away an old stuffed animal. None of these objects have minds. You know that. But your brain runs a kind of background process that assumes intention first and asks questions later. Researchers call this agency detection, and it likely evolved for a very practical reason. In the ancestral environment, mistaking a shifting bush for a predator cost you nothing but a startled heartbeat. But mistaking a real predator for wind in the grass could cost you your life. Over evolutionary time, the humans who overdetected minds and threats simply survived more often than the ones who didn't. Death, then, becomes the ultimate test of that wiring. A predator hides and might return. So might a person you loved. The line between the two, biologically speaking, was thinner than you'd think. This is where the watching part comes in. If the dead retained some form of mind, then it followed, at least emotionally, that they could still see you, still judge you, still remember what you owed them. Anthropologists studying small-scale societies across the world, from ancestor veneration in parts of West Africa to ancestor shrines throughout East Asia, have repeatedly found the same underlying structure. The dead are not simply mourned. They are consulted, honored, sometimes feared. Because if they are still aware, then how you treat their memory matters just as much as how you treated them in life. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This belief may not have just emerged. You are born with it,